This December journal theme is for lovers of fantasy and fairy tales and history. I wanted to step right away from Christmas since I didn't know where this journal was going to end up or whose hands it would be in. So instead, I wanted to offer a symbol of protection and strength and whimsy to honor this final month of the year that was 2025. The color scheme is also super appropriate for those of you who start an icy winter in December, which is not the case for me in the southern hemisphere, but I do love to look at icy blue tones when it's really hot outside. Hi, I'm Erin, and this is the very last monthly theme that I set up in this journal all the way back in April and May and then gave away to someone who watches my videos. I like to call this my mystery journal because all of the setups inside are a mystery to the winner and to everyone else at the time when I give away the journal. If the idea of having one of these fully set up journals for 6 months of the year that I have done completely for you appeals to you, I actually have a giveaway for the next mystery journal open on my channel right now, so there's a link to the video in the cards in the top corner here and also down in the description. You'll need to watch that one to find out how to enter. Something I did with this mystery journal that I hadn't done before and that I think I want to do with all of my mystery journals moving forward, however long I keep making them, is that everything I included in them were already items in my stationery stash, so I didn't buy anything new. I almost used it like a challenge, like can I set up an entire 6-month journal only using stuff I've already got? And for this particular iteration of the mystery journal, I also wanted to give it an overarching theme, and that theme was a touch of magic. As always, I will link to everything I possibly can in the description in case you like the look of anything that I'm using here, but because I did set this up so long ago, it's possible some of them aren't in stock anymore. The blue and silver washi tape is originally from Books Kinokuniya in Australia. I picked that one up in person a couple of years ago now, I think. The blue check washi tape was from Stationery Pal, and the icicle PET tape along the top I got from JOURNALSAY. I'm also using some black and white frames as a layering element. Those came from JOURNALSAY as well. But the star of this layout is definitely the pre-cut sticker tape from Korea Crafts. It's their Medieval Castles PET tape, and it is perfect for this theme. It has the whole swords and horses fantasy kind of thing going on, and a few not so subtle nods to Lord of the Rings, which I just think is so lovely. It came as part of a subscription box that I was trying out at one point, and I'm going to be using a few of the other elements from that subscription box later on as well. I've essentially used all of my decorative elements to build out a frame, and then we're going to use the space in the middle to really give the December header a moment. I had these excellent crest stamps. These are also from Korea Crafts, and I wanted to work out which of my ornate letter stamps would fit best in the middle of these, so I'm giving it a test run in my research and development journal. These are actually the planning spreads that I used for the mystery journal theme planning on a live stream with my channel members. And the letter stamps are from 2 different London stamping places. The bigger ones are from Printing Stamps London. I picked them up on my last trip from Portobello Road Markets. And the smaller one, which I'm not going to use for this video, I just had to give it the test run, is from the Old Printing Shop of London, which is in Covent Garden at the markets. London markets is something else, truly. I think they're also at Portobello Road sometimes as well. I wanted to give myself a really good shot at a super clean stamp, so I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. It is just the cleanest stamp ink that I have ever used. I love it. On a typical woodblock stamp, I usually like to go with paint markers, but I don't find they work so well with clear stamps like these ones, and the vintage stamps really only work very well with the VersaFine stamp pads, unfortunately, so I have to work with what works with the stamps. But I wanted all of this to look like it was one stamp, so I'm grabbing one of my trusty Sakura Pigma Micron pens and just kind of scribbling around the edges to fill in the space between the crest stamp and the letter stamp, so it looks like all of this is just one cohesive piece. I'm actually so happy with the way it turned out. I think it does really look like it was supposed to be this way all along. We'll come back and colour it in once that ink pad has really dried down. I don't want to smear anything, and we're going to add the rest of the letters with my italic calligraphy pen, which is from Kuretake. This one is the Zig calligraphy pen. I regret this lettering a little bit. I don't think I did my best work here. I think this could have looked better if I had used a simpler letter stamp for the rest of the word, but I wanted it to be quite big, and I didn't really have letter stamps that would give me the size I was going for here. My spacing's a bit all over the shop, but if you don't look too closely at the details, I think it looks fine. Now that everything's had a chance to dry, I'm going to jump in with the N60 Tombow. That's the cool grey. I'm going to use that to fill in the crest design around the outside, and the N89, which is my favourite very soft grey Tombow, to add a little bit of extra detail in there as well. And then once the lettering has had a chance to really dry down as well, we'll use the really nice light 491 Tombow, which is an icy blue, perfect for the theme, to add some colour to the D of December and a drop shadow to the rest of the word. The 491 is one of those pens that doesn't really show up so well on camera but looks fantastic in person, especially if you like a second line highlight like I do. It's really, really good for that purpose. Our December cover spread is almost finished, it just needs a few extra details to really tie in this center of the page. There's a lot going on already, but I think we can handle a little bit more. Sometimes I go into my themes with a really clear idea of how I'm going to approach the decoration, and sometimes I completely wing it, and this was one of those cases where I decided to just wing it and things went well. But there are some areas of life where I feel like I can't do that. Since we are rushing up on the end of the year right now, I'm currently focusing on finishing all the incomplete projects that I've started throughout the year, and a big one I've really been putting off is hanging the gallery wall above my lovely new vintage desk that I got back in August. I sourced artwork and frames months ago, but I didn't know how to approach actually getting them on the wall in an arrangement that looked great. And that's where today's video sponsor Skillshare comes in. I took Jamie Smith's class Home is Where Your Art Is, How to Hang Art and Create a Gallery Wall. Jamie shares so much valuable insight in this class about how to find art, different gallery wall layouts and hanging methods, and also a really great paper template system so you can see how your layout will look on the wall before you commit. And now I have this gorgeous gallery wall up above my desk, ready to inspire me every time I glance up. Skillshare is jam-packed with creative classes taught by world-class creative professionals, ranging from interior design like Jamie's gallery wall class, through to traditional and digital art, music and video production, entrepreneurship, productivity, and the list goes on. Whether you're picking up a new hobby, developing your craft, learning how to do that one thing you need to do to finish a project like me, or upskilling in your chosen field, Skillshare is designed to help you build creativity into your life by learning directly from established and successful creatives. I also really love that you always learn by doing with Skillshare, so you always walk away from the class not just with the knowledge of how to do the thing, but actually having done the thing. If you're ready to level up your own skill set, do I have the offer for you? The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare and 20% off their first payment. This offer is only available in November, so get started today. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now that both my gallery wall and my December cover page are done, we can turn the page and move on to some of the functional spreads. As always, the first of mine is going to be a calendar, but rather than drawing a grid and boxes like I normally do, instead we're just going to have a floating line that demarcates the top of the planning space for each week, and leave things a little bit more open than usual. December starts on a Monday, which is very handy if you're someone who likes to have Monday starting calendars like me, and finishes on a Wednesday, so New Year's Eve will be on a Wednesday this year, which means we have a little bit of extra space in the bottom right corner of the spread versus the top. I'm using the trusty 03 Sakura Pigma Micron pen as my fine liner here. I really trust it more than anything in the mystery journal because I want things to be relatively streak-proof in case something ever gets spilled on this journal, or God forbid it gets rained on its way to its new destination or something and gets soggy. Of course I try to protect it as much as I can, but you never know. And I have found when using this calendar layout in the past that it can get a little bit confusing to work out where one day ends and the next one begins, so I'm using the grey Tombow from earlier just to add a little line in the blue line so I know where those days are going to start and finish. And so does the journal winner. It's subtle, but it's very helpful. I'm using my calligraphy pen again to add the initial for each day of the week along the top here. It is not supposed to be used to write this small, but I was just kind of working with what I thought would go okay, and I think you can still read the letters, so maybe it's fine. I really wanted to have all of this important information down on the page first before I jumped in with this beautiful PET tape, these icicle kind of stalactites. I knew I was going to be able to get away with having it kind of slightly intrude into the calendar space, overlapping things a little bit, but I had to know where they sat first before I could commit to that, so one thing at a time. And this went down better as 2 separate pieces rather than just one. That can be a really good tip if your journal's starting to get bulky too. Having them split in the middle just helps to save your spine a little bit. This washi tape with the text on it is also from the same Korea Crafts medieval box that I got quite a while ago now. And of course we need to add some knights and some medieval symbolism, castles and things. But I didn't want to go as hard with the decoration as I did on the cover spread. I wanted to bring things back a little bit, mostly so I made sure that I'd have enough to go all the way through the whole journal theme. But I'm also always trying to keep in mind that these pages will look busier when used, so once you've got some information down on the calendar, there's going to be a bit more visual weight going on the page, especially if you're using something like a black pen, which I think most people do. Onward to our next spread, and if you're seeing these and thinking, wow, this feels familiar, she did the exact same thing in last month's mystery journal setup, that's for a really good reason. I don't know where the journal's going to end up once it leaves my hands. I don't know who's going to be using it and what their personal circumstances are, so I deliberately make sure the pages are the same from one month to the next so that I'm not dangling something in front of them that they get used to using and then taking it away the next month. Which is why the spread after the calendar spread for the past 6 months has always been this one. We're starting with the right side this time though, just to shake things up and be a little bit different. This one is a gratitude log, so it is just a space to write one line every day about something that you're grateful for that happened over the course of that day, or that you thought about, or that you recognized. This is probably the simplest way that you can set one of those up. I've just done a second line highlight, I'm adding a little title at the top, and I've got the initial and the number for each day of the month down the left side, so it's really easy to see what is supposed to go where. And then back on the page before that, the other side, this is kind of a goals situation, but we're not calling it goals in this journal because of the magic element, right? So instead we're calling it manifesting. That goes on the top half of this page, and the bottom half of this page is a little snapshot of who you are in the moment, what you're enjoying, what you're into. I'm just calling it enjoying for lack of a better term, really. Like, it works, it does the job, but like there's probably something more magical we could have called that one. I find this section really interesting and really enjoyable to look back at in the future and be like, what was I into in December of 2025? It's just a fun little reminiscing task. It's not really an important thing, but I think it's a very enjoyable thing. In order to make sure all of my stuff stretches across the layout, I'm adding some extra nights in here. These ones are from a sticker sheet from STICKII. Very conveniently a great colour match for our blue-grey kind of theme we've got going on here. And that vaguely snowflakey washi tape along the top and bottom of the spread is from Daiso quite some time ago now. Are you ready for a really fun mood tracker? I love when I can make them kind of illustrative, like a colouring in page, and I have all of the right stamps to do that in this theme, so that's going to be a really good one. They're from the Quirky Cup Collective. But first we have to do the left side of what will end up being this tracker spread. This is the habit tracker. I'm trying to make sure my lines in this setup are not too harsh, not too bold and dark, so I'm doing this kind of broken line setup where you dot and dash your pen along the surface of the ruler rather than drawing a solid line. It takes a little bit longer, but I love the way it looks. This habit tracker is an interesting one, so each of the spaces for the month take up half of a line each, if that makes sense. So I'm drawing the numbers along the top here to start with. The top row is going to represent the top row of the habit tracking spaces, and the bottom row is going to represent the bottom row of the habit tracking spaces. And I'm adding days of the week that correspond to those as well. So it's a nifty little way to fit it on the page, but I know it's a bit confusing sometimes when you first glance at it. I promise it makes more sense in practice. So this column is where you write down the habit that you want to track. The top row corresponds to these things at the top here, days of the week and the numbers, and the bottom row corresponds to the ones down the bottom. I love headings in my journal because they're a great chance to practice hand lettering, but it's especially important in a journal that's not actually for me, so let's add a little habit tracker header along the top. That's the Pentel brush sign pen, in case you're wondering. It's my favourite for hand lettering and really good for small spaces. And I'm going to very minimally decorate, especially on the right page here, because we've got a lot of work to do over on this right page as far as tiny little stamp illustrations. I'm also quite guilty of often forgetting to add the key for my mood trackers until after I've set the rest of the mood tracker up and there's no space left, so I'm going to try and remember to do that first this time. We'll add our tiny little heading down here because I don't want to take up too much space, and then we get to the fun stuff. The idea of this kind of mood tracker is that there's a different little illustration to colour in every day, and the colour that you use corresponds to your main mood for that day, so the key down the bottom can be a reference for what those are. I knew I needed to fit 31 here because there are 31 days in December, so I drew myself out a bit of a grid to give me a spacing guideline, to give me an idea of how many stamps I might need, and then I just went for it. I just started with my bigger ones and worked my way into the smaller stamps. I'm using a combination of the book genre stamp set, the fantasy and fiction stamp set, and the practical magic stamp set to make this come together because they're all just so good, but mostly fantasy and fiction. And I'm again using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink for my stamping here because I know that's going to hold up really well when coloured over, no matter what the winner of this journal uses. If you set out to make a similar mood tracker to this yourself, you might find that you also have to stop and count all of your stamps repeatedly, like I am doing. It's worth it in the end, I promise. This is just so much fun to look at, and so much fun to fill in too. I'm adding the number for each day of the month nice and tight, nice and close to the illustration each time, so it doesn't really stick out too much because I don't want them to be super obvious. Mostly we want the focus to be on the pretty stuff here. And this way, even if you have a really bad month and you have lots of sad days, you've still made something really nice by the end of it. You've still made a really cute little coloring in page. We have a decent amount of space left over on the left side underneath the habit tracker, so that's where we're going to focus all of our decoration this time. It'll keep the theme going without taking up any of the actual functional planning space, and I love when that can happen. Also trying to keep in mind here that that right page will look even busier when coloured in, so we've got a lot for an eye to look at here, so we don't need to worry about adding too many more things. Just cleaning up with a white paint marker anywhere that the stamp smudged that I didn't want it to, and then we can carry on. This next spread is one I've started including in my own journal again after seeing it in my mystery journal setups when I was editing and going, wow, I could really use one of those, and that's a meal planner. But also kind of a shopping list. I feel like the two go hand in hand. There are a bunch of ways you can set these up, but for the instance of the mystery journal, I'm going with actually essentially a calendar. But I'm lining it up with the top left corner of the entire spread this time rather than trying to have it somewhat balanced in the middle of the spread, because I'm going to be using that leftover space for my shopping list areas. I've also made sure to size each of the boxes for the calendar spread to be pretty big, so there's room to write some information in there, whether you're tracking every meal or planning every meal that you want to eat every day, or if you're just going to be doing a few of them or one every now and then. There's enough flexibility for it to be used in a bunch of different ways. I find having the shopping list right there on the spread with the meal planner really just streamlines that process, because then you don't have to think about like, oh well, what are all of the things that I need? You can even coordinate meals that use the same ingredients if you want to make things a little bit easier on yourself. And I've deliberately made the shopping list space a very, very tall column, so it can be split into several smaller ones if you find that that is useful. There's also a bit of space left over underneath the calendar, so I'm going to put some more there. This is Mitsu, my cat who absolutely loves food, so it makes sense that he shows up during the meal planner part of the video. If you have a pet in the room with you right now and it reacted to Mitsu's presence in the video, please let me know about it in the comments down below. I always love hearing those stories. Once again, I wanted to really make sure the bones of the layout were down on the page before I added any decoration, but I did also consider decoration going in, so I've still got room for some washi tape down the right side of the spread, and I've still got some spaces where I can add little collage clusters of all of the things I've been using all the way through. So some more of the tartan tape, some more of the script tape, some more of this amazing vinyl that is actually a vintage find that I got from my friend's stationery store. That one actually also appeared in August in this journal, which is a fun little bit of a throwback. If you're ever unsure about where to put your decoration, I think really just focusing on the functionality of the page first and squeezing your decoration in wherever you still have room is a really legitimate way to do it, because it works for me. Tiny continuity error here because I didn't remember to add those letters at the top of the calendar until the very end of the video when I went to film the flip through, so you didn't see them after I did them for a second there, but that's just show business, baby. Just wanted to mention it in case you noticed that and went, wait, what just happened? We're on now to the spending log page, and this one never changes because I can't think of any other way to do it that makes more sense to me, so I just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and I have now for probably like 7 years. Way back in the beginning of this journal, there is an overall cash flow tracker that covered the second half of the year, and this spending log corresponds to that, so you can keep track of everything you spend over the course of the month if you'd like to, or just larger purchases or whatever feels good to you. This table is set up so that you're tracking not just the item and the cost, but also putting it into a category. And the category is the important part as far as going back to the beginning of the journal, because that's what there's a space to track way back there. And also it corresponds to your budget. So say you've set this much money I want to spend per month on this one thing, and then that's a category in your spending log, then you can tally it up and see, did you spend that much? Did you spend less? Did you spend more? And really keep yourself on track if you want to. So the spending log page looks like it's a table with 6 columns, but it's actually 2 tables with 3 columns, and I just put them right next to each other, so it's a bit more space saving that way. My old paper cutter. I miss that tool, that purple thing with the blue blade thing. It was so good. I didn't realize how good I had it until I broke it and I got a replacement that doesn't do anywhere near as well. Don't worry, I'm looking into solutions, it's going to be fine. But I'm using it here to trim down my icicle tape so it will fit in the space along the top of the spending log, because I just really like how that looks. Actually, that's not the spending log. This page over here on the right is for keeping of memories. I'm not totally sure how the person with the journal would want to do that from one month to the next, so I just leave it as kind of an open, gently decorated page, and they can approach it however they want. If they want a junk journal, if they want to do like a long form wrap-up kind of reflection thing, maybe they will want to fill it with Polaroid pictures, or maybe they'll tell the story of their month through their sticker collection or something. Totally up to them, so I'm just leaving it very open and very interpretable. Something else I like to leave very open and interpretable is this entire next spread, because it is literally just a spare backup spread that is decorated and ready to go for any purpose that I have not considered that the winner of this journal might find they need. I'm going with my standard favourite corner collage method here because that leaves me plenty of room, and I don't know if the person winning the journal will want to use a full double page spread for something, or if they'll split it into 2 different purposes for the different pages, so this way it still leaves a lot of flexibility while still being decorated and ready to go. And if they don't have a purpose for this spread, it is conveniently situated right after the memory page, so it can be overflow for that if there are more things they want to keep track of, or junk journal, or add pictures, or write about. And if not, then I sent a bunch of extra stickers and washi tape and things along with this journal, so they can just have a fun time playing around with whatever's left over from this theme and making a really enjoyable decorative spread if they prefer. And now we're into the weekly spreads, which I take very seriously because in my own journal, these are the spreads that I use the most heavily. This one is actually a very standard box layout, except instead of drawing boxes on the page, I'm using my good old second line highlights to delineate the space where each of the days planning will go. And because weeks only have 7 days and they will never look symmetrical really in a journal, I'm adding an extra space for notes because that's just useful to have sometimes too. Notice how the bottom third approximately of the spread is open? Guess what we're going to do with that? Yeah, we're going to decorate it. Especially with this script washi tape, the way it is naturally horizontally oriented makes me want to use it that way, so I have definitely planned this to suit the washi tapes that I have going on here. Same with the icicles. You don't really see icicles that go sideways or upwards so much, but down makes sense, so try to make sure that I play to the strengths of the materials that I'm using, otherwise they might feel a little bit strange. Then we'll just scatter some of my smaller decorative pieces around just to really make sure that the theme feels like it's everywhere and not just at the bottom of the spread. This is one of my favourite vertically oriented weeklies to use, and I prefer a vertically oriented weekly because that just makes the most sense when it comes to things like lists. Let's do another one, but this one is very vertical. This one is actually columns. Not to be mistaken for the 90s video game of the same name, which was fantastic, by the way. This one is just going to give you less horizontal space to plan, but if you'd like to do short notes in long lists, this is a really good one for you. I'm doing second line highlights again and just alternating between the 491 blue pen and the lovely light N95 Tombow as well, which is one of my favourites for this purpose. Once again, since the orientation of my washi tapes and things are mostly horizontal, I've left myself some room at the top and bottom of the spread to allow those to really shine, while still keeping my theme going all the way through across all of the spreads. I really like to mix up the weekly, so it's kind of like a chocolate sampler box for the winner of the journal. They can try out a lot of things and see what works well for them. So instead of a vertical weekly for our next one, let's make it horizontal. So I've divided my page into 4 sections, and I'm going to add a little decorative cluster on the inside and outside of the page, depending, kind of alternating. So up the top it's going to be on the left side, the one underneath that will be on the right, and so on and so forth. That's where I'm going to put the information about the day of the week and the initial maybe for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or maybe we'll put a few letters there. It's also going to act as the bulk of the decoration for this setup, so just kind of 2 washi tapes and a sticker. And the space around those are where the planning happens, to the right or to the left of the decorative area. So what kind of planning goes on a weekly? That might be different for everyone, but for me it's events, it's reminders, it's task lists every day as well in the moment. I like to record people's birthdays on there so that I don't forget when the day rolls around. But the main thing for me is the day-to-day to-do list, so that's what I find the most useful. It can also just be handy to have a little record of the things that you did on which day. So if you're trying to remember when you did something, you can just flick back through the journal and find it. Also, apparently we're going with the full day for the lettering. We're not just doing a T for Tuesday or a TUE, we're going to do the whole word. It is just as much of a surprise to me sometimes as it is to you, because by the time I get to editing this video, it's been 6 months since I set it up, and I don't always remember what I did. We've only got 1 weekly spread left to set up in this journal, and for this entire year in the mystery journal, typically I like to keep the weeks together, so if there is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that flows into the next month and the rest of the week is in the following month, I'll usually include those days in that setup, but this is the very end of the journal and the very end of the year, so instead I'm going to modify this weekly so that I can fit 3 extra days on it, as well as the regular 7-day week that precedes it. It is what is colloquially known as Void Week on the internet these days, that kind of dead week in between Christmas and New Year's where you don't know who you are or what your name is or whether you're coming or going. But just in case the winner of the journal has something to do at that time, I want to make sure they've got space for planning it. So this layout divides each page into 6 columns, 3 along the top of the page and 3 underneath. Which means if we kept that going all the way across the spread, we'd actually have space for planning for 12 days. We don't need that many. We only need 10, so guess what I'm going to do with the extra space left over? Yeah, we're going to put decoration in the empty bit. But first let's make sure the functional space for each of these days is ready and locked in. Yay, we did it, which means we have space to put decoration in the bottom right corner here, and that feels really apt because it's kind of like celebrating New Year's, you know, with a little bit of stationery after the 31st in the journal. That just feels really correct. I did change my mind about placement and layering a little bit here, but eventually we get to something that I'm pretty happy with. I think it's quite a cute little vignette in the corner. Having just that decoration in the bottom right corner does feel a little bit bottom heavy to me though, so I wanted to add just a little something to each of the weeklies to make them feel like they were all part of the theme and not just chilling out while the theme happened in the bottom right corner without them. Silver ornate corners to the rescue. I'm just going to pop one in the corner of each of the days, direction depending on which page they're on, and then we have just a little bit of something going on. There's also just enough space for me to squeeze in a bit of washi tape at the very top and bottom of the spread. It does sort of look like an afterthought, and indeed it was an afterthought, but I do think it brings a little touch of visual weight to this spread that it kind of needed to tie in the darkness in the colours of that night over there. But I didn't want it to cover my silver corners, so I had to peel some of those up to make space. And with that, we are finished with the mystery journal for the second half of 2025. Let's have a full flip through of December from start to finish. And don't you think this theme just works so well with the cover of the journal? Flipping to it directly from the front of the journal just then felt really good. Thank you so much for following along with the Mystery Journal series, and don't forget to check out the link in the description if you want to watch the setup video for the new one, which is floral themed, and potentially maybe even enter the giveaway. You've got until December 1st to enter, so get cracking. Now that you've seen all of the themes in this journal, let me know if you want to see a flip through of the journal from start to finish. Of course, it won't be filled in because I was not the user of this journal, but I can show you what it all looked like right before I sent it off to its winner. Wishing you a cozy and magical December. May your stickers always peel up beautifully if you decide you want to move them. May your journal themes come together without you even really having to try. And may your packages reach you without issue even when the postal service is really busy. In case you'd like some more inspiration for December, here is December last year in my own bullet journal, as well as the playlist of all of the Mystery Journal setup videos so far this year in case you'd like to revisit any of those.